Before I jump into talking about remote work, I want to acknowledge that there is a lot going on in the world right now. Many of us are feeling sad, many of us are feeling frustrated, many of us are feeling angry, and many of us are hurting. For years, we've had a pattern of racial injustice and systematic racism in the US. For many of us, current events have increased our awareness of this ugly problem. We must change, we must do better. In a global online space like this, chances are good that some of you are already working to influence change. I applaud you for this. In this space, I have a feeling some of you want to be part of the solution, but you aren't sure how. It can be so easy to acknowledge the problem, feel overwhelmed by it, and then just become immobilized by that overwhelming feeling. We feel the feelings of sadness and anger, but then don't actually take the next step to do something about it. It's so easy to let this happen without even realizing it. In the tech world, when we have a large problems to solve, we don't do it all at once. We break it down into smaller tasks or user stories that can be accomplished in a day or two. When you put all of those tasks together, you get a full working app. So let's do the same thing here. If you're not already involved in being part of the solution, I encourage you to pick one small thing you can do this weekend and then do it. If you're not sure what you can do, I have a list of 3 things you can do. I recognize that I'm coming into this conversation as a white person with privilege, so the research that I've done on how to help is from that perspective. And I'm not saying these are the right things to do or the best things to do. I just want to give you some practical examples of small steps you can take right now. So one thing you can do is educate yourself. There are so many ways you can do this. You can research the history of racism online. You can go to YouTube and other social media and listen to the stories Black people are sharing. You can learn about microaggressions and bias and discover how you might be unintentionally hurting others. One book that's been recommended to me by a couple of people is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Kendi. If you have kids, talk with them about racism and current events. Research from Harvard University shows that kids as young as 3 embrace racism when exposed to it. It's not too early to talk with your kids about it. It's probably going to be really uncomfortable for you, but it's important. EmbraceRace.org has put together a list of children's books to help you have these conversations. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I've heard that the town hall that Sesame Street did earlier today was really well done, so you can look for that as well. And then my final suggestion for you is to donate. Many of us in the tech industry have been fortunate to keep our jobs during this pandemic as we're able to work remotely. I know that not everyone here has remained employed, but if you're in a position to donate, I encourage you to do so. Find a cause that reflects your values and donate. It can be easy to feel overwhelmed when you start researching what cause to donate to, as there are so many good organizations. But don't let that sway you from donating. You don't have to find the perfect cause. Find one that is doing good work and donate to it. If you find another cause later on that's doing great things, you can always donate to that cause as well. Think about the impact we could make right now if everyone who is listening donated just $5. Think about if we all donated more. There are many good lists online right now of organizations to donate to. To get you started, here's one I found on Charity Navigator that lists nonprofits that are defending civil rights. There's so many other things you can do. You can protest, you can sign a petition, you can support a friend who is hurting, you can research politicians for the upcoming election, you can amplify Black voices who are sharing their stories and ideas for solutions, you can advocate for better hiring and promotion policies at your company, you can support Black-owned businesses, you can get involved in an organization that is working to influence change, or you can attend the session after this one about how to lend your privilege and then actually follow through and lend your privilege. Whatever it is, I encourage you to do one thing this weekend and then pick something else and do it next week. Just don't do nothing. The silence is deafening. All right, there's really no smooth way to make a transition here, but I'm going to do it anyway. So let's shift gears and let's talk about remote work. This is a picture of my dad. He has no idea I'm using this photo in this presentation, but he willingly posed for this photo and then he posted it on Facebook. So I feel like if he didn't want this picture broadcasted in a presentation to people around the world, that's really on him. And Dad doesn't usually come to my presentations, but since this is being broadcasted, he might actually be watching. So, hi, Dad. Anyway, you probably can't tell from this ridiculous photo, but he was a Harrier pilot in the military for over 20 years. Then he retired from the military and joined Lockheed Martin, where he currently works as a people manager. When the quarantine orders hit his area, he called me up and he was like, Lauren, you've been working remotely for years. What advice can you give to me to give to my employees who have never worked remotely? So I started rattling off bits and pieces of advice, and he was like, wait, let me get a notepad. And old school, he actually started scribbling down notes. After a few minutes, he was like, okay, that's enough. Let's just stop. Okay, so this presentation will be a much more organized version of that conversation I had with my dad. I'm going to give you my top 10 tips for making remote work actually work right now in current quarantine conditions. If you're here, I'm going to assume that you are working remotely because you want to, or you've been forced to due to quarantine or safety concerns, or perhaps you're preparing to begin working for one of the big Silicon Valley companies who recently discovered that remote work actually works, and they're shifting to allow all employees to work remotely forever. I gave a talk at PyCon last year where I discussed what the research shows about the effectiveness of remote work. I shared my story of how I began working remotely. I walked through a framework of how to ask your boss if you can work remotely, and I shared my top 5 tips for working remotely during normal conditions. So if you're interested in those topics, check out that talk on YouTube. The slides for today's presentation are available on my Twitter page, so don't worry about scribbling down the link. You'll be able to get it afterward. All right, so let's dive in to my top 10 tips for how to make remote work actually work right now. So, number 10, acknowledge that this isn't normal. Life isn't normal right now. If you are struggling to work remotely, it's important to acknowledge that these are not normal remote work conditions. Julia is a technical program manager at Google, and she tweeted this at the beginning of May. She said, I've been working remotely for 2.5 years. The past 2.5 months have left me more exhausted than ever before. This is your reminder that you're not working remotely. You're working remotely during a global health crisis. I could not agree more. I've been working remotely for 10 years, and working remotely during quarantine has been a huge struggle for me. I have a 4-year-old who's running around, making noise, and interrupting me. Before the pandemic, when I would tell people that I would work from home, sometimes they would say, oh, that must be so nice that you get to spend time with your kid while you work. And I'm like, oh, no, she goes to daycare. There's no way I could work effectively and watch her at the same time. And here I've been attempting to do just that during quarantine, and it's been rough. Perhaps you have noisy kids or roommates or pets. Perhaps you're stressed because of financial concerns, or you're worried about the health of your friends and family, or you miss being around other people, or you're upset due to recent tragedies and racial injustice. Whatever the case, life is not normal right now. So try to cut yourself some slack. For people like me, this is definitely easier said than done. But seriously, try to cut yourself some slack and acknowledge that if you're currently struggling with remote work, you may do better once we return to more normal conditions, whatever that looks like. So as I mentioned, this is a top 10 list. Before I move on to each new tip, I'm going to repeat the tips we've already covered to hopefully help seal them in your brain. So number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. If you're going to be on a call where you know you're going to struggle to pay attention and you're going to be tempted to reply to email or check social media or make snarky comments with your colleagues on Slack, take your hands away from your keyboard and do some other mindless task. For example, you could do the dishes, color, dust. I know I did a little cleaning this morning, exercise, or even paint your nails. Studies show that doodling helps people retain information. I found the same to be true for any mindless task. If I sit in front of my computer, the temptation to multitask is too great. I'm likely to do something else that will require mental energy and prevent me from fully listening. So for those boring all hands calls or dry conference sessions where you're going to struggle to pay attention, just turn off your webcam and do something else. So number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. I have a problem of bringing a huge Costco-sized box of Cheez-Its into my office and then eating way too many of them. Also, whenever my toddler snacks or my husband snacks, I want a snack. That's fair, right? Well, the quarantine has not been kind to my waistline. So I've been trying to make an effort recently to eat intentionally. If I want a snack, I go pour myself a reasonably sized portion into a bowl. I'm also trying to limit the number of snacks and keep them relatively healthy. Now, I've heard from some of my colleagues, they have the opposite problem. They will sit at their desks and not realize they missed their lunch until 2 p.m. I honestly don't understand how this is possible, but apparently this is an issue for some people. If that's you, set an alarm on your phone or block time on your calendar to eat lunch. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and eating intentionally. So, number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. When you work from home, it's so easy to work long hours and never feel disconnected from your work. A study in March of this year showed that US employees are working an average of 3 hours more per day during the pandemic. 3 hours. When you work remotely, you don't have the physical trigger of like walking into an office to know you should begin working and then leaving the office to know you should stop working. It's so easy for the lines to blur, especially when we have access to Slack and email on our phones. But here's the thing. Your employer has invested a lot of time and money to make you a productive employee. They don't want you to burn out and quit. If you leave, they have to start over and train someone completely new to be productive. Additionally, if you leave, you take with you all of that team knowledge that may not be written down anywhere. So, actively prevent burnout. Your manager probably isn't going to do this for you, so you have to be very proactive. If your manager asks you to do something that will force you to work overtime, be upfront and ask them, which task would you like me to drop? The other key here is to set boundaries. Pick what time you typically want to start working and what time you typically want to stop working, and stick to it. When your workday is over, turn off your computer. If you have Slack and email on your phone, turn off the notifications. Completely disconnect whenever possible so that you can return to work each day refreshed and ready to do your best work. Pauline gave a great talk about burnout earlier today. If you missed it, definitely go look for the recording later. All right, so number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Yep, it's important to actually do your job. Slack conducted a study during the COVID-19 pandemic and found that how long you've been working remotely in terms of experience makes an impact on how productive you are. In fact, they found that those who were new to remote work were twice as likely to say they are less productive at home. The study also showed that a majority of experienced remote workers say they are more productive at home. Over time, as you work remotely, you gather tools to help you be productive. So let's talk about some tools you can use to help you be productive. First up, set daily goals. I begin every day by looking at my task list and picking out the most important, like 1 or 2 things that I want to get done that day. And then I do everything I can to get those done. This helps me focus on what's most important and not just what's most urgent or what's easiest. Now, I have a tendency to get lost in my work. I can sit at my computer for hours without taking a break, except for maybe a quick trip to the kitchen to grab a snack that I will then bring back and eat at my desk. This is not great. So I've set up reminders to move on my Fitbit. Every hour, my Fitbit will buzz if I have not moved enough. This is great as it helps me stretch and clear my head. Mental breaks will help you be more productive, so take them. On the flip side, some people struggle to get work done if they don't have the accountability of someone walking by like they would in an office to see if they're actually working. So if you're one of those people, I recommend trying out the Pomodoro technique. The idea is to work in short blocks of time on a specific task, about 25 minutes, and then take a break. The great thing here is that it encourages you to avoid distractions like social media or TV or Slack messages, so you can create focused work time to get stuff done. If you want to Google this technique, it's called the Pomodoro technique. It's named after the tomato-shaped kitchen timers. All right, so to sum this tip up, set goals, get important stuff done, be productive. Number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Number 5, embrace the kids. This is not advice I would typically give remote workers, but these are not normal times. You guys remember this BBC interview from a couple years ago? This guy is giving an interview on a very serious topic, and one of his kids rolls in. She's super pleased with herself. The dad is just mortified. And then kid number 2 rolls in, and dad really just can't believe this is happening. Luckily, mom comes in to save the day. And in just a moment, she sneaks back in to shut the door. Now, to be honest with you, I probably would have been mortified as well. I'm a huge advocate for having childcare if you're working from home. It's really hard to be an effective parent and an effective employee at the same time. The thing is, kids are home right now, and there's very little we can do about it. I've been so impressed with the way Jimmy Fallon has embraced his kids while attempting to film The Tonight Show. He knew his kids were going to be around, and he rolled with it. My husband and I have done our best to co-parent while working remotely, but it's been tough. I've been so appreciative of my manager who talks with my daughter and makes her feel special when he sees her on the call. My kid is so much happier if she feels acknowledged. I found that if I let her come in, say hi to everyone, waved everybody on the webcam, she's much more likely to leave and then go play in another room. If you're working with people who have kids at home, please be kind to the kids. The parents are struggling, and a few kind words to the kid is going to make everybody feel better. Also, while it may seem like parents are going to be the least productive people on your team right now, a Valor study showed otherwise. They surveyed people during the pandemic and found that those who were working from home with children saw a 2% productivity decrease. They found that those who were working alone without other adults or children in the home, meaning they were completely self-isolating, they saw a 3% productivity decrease. This really surprised me. My hypothesis would have been that parents would be the least productive group. So when you're checking in on your coworkers who are parents to make sure they're doing okay, also check in on your coworkers who are isolating completely by themselves. They might be struggling even more. So number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Number 5, embrace the kids. Number 4, care for yourself. This is another one that is easier said than done, especially if you're caring for others right now. But do what you can to take care of yourself. Try to exercise a bit every day. Try to eat something healthy. Try to do something fun. I'm an introvert, so you might think I'd be doing fine during quarantine, but I actually have way less time to myself right now that everyone is home with me all the time. I found that taking slow walks by myself in the evening can really help. Sometimes I'll even put on my noise canceling headphones on, and I don't even play music, so I can really be alone with my thoughts. My guess is that the extroverts are also struggling. If that's you, create virtual coffee breaks, happy hours, game nights, or whatever with your colleagues, your friends, or your families. You know what you need, so make time for it. Care for yourself. Number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Number 5, embrace the kids. Number 4, care for yourself. And number 3, take a lunch break every day, away from your computer. As a working mom, my lunch break was one of my favorite parts of my day. It was my guilt-free time to sit quietly and enjoy watching whatever TV show I wanted that no one else in my family wanted to watch. And I could actually hear the TV show without any interruptions. It was amazing. But now everybody's home, so we have family lunch. Yay. I'm sure I'll look back on these family lunches with fondness. So for me, I like to watch TV during lunch, but maybe you're not a TV person. Maybe you prefer to read a book or a magazine. Maybe you want to listen to a podcast, or maybe you want to go for a walk or exercise. Whatever the case, take 30 minutes in the middle of your day, step away from your computer, and do something else. I found that if I'm starting to lose focus or I'm stuck on a problem, I'll take a lunch break and return refreshed, and the answer on how to move forward on that problem will come to me. So every day, take a lunch break. Number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Number 5, embrace the kids. Number 4, care for yourself. Number 3, take a lunch break. I have saved my most important 2 tips for last. Number 2, ask for what you want. I attended the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing a few years ago, back when we could attend conferences in person, and a moderator asked a keynote panel, if you could change one thing, what would it be? Tella Whitney's response was so simple, but it has stuck with me all these years later. She said, if I could change anything, it would be that each and every one of you would ask for what she wants. Now, typically when I share this with people, I encourage them to ask for a promotion or a raise or a growth opportunity. And I still stand by that advice. But I want to really encourage you to think about what you want right now from your company, your spouse, your roommates, your kids, and then ask them for it. I've been reading a lot of articles about how to successfully work remotely with kids during quarantine. And some of the articles have suggested that you simply explain to your kids that you need focused work time. And then supposedly the kids are going to allow you to work for an hour or 2 uninterrupted. That sounds really great. And maybe that works for older kids, but I can assure you that did not work for my toddler. So think about what your ask is, what's within the reasonable scope of possibilities, and ask for it. In my case, I told my manager I was struggling to work with my toddler at home and asked to take advantage of the parental care leave that my company was offering. My management team was really supportive. So they actually came back to me and they said, instead of taking a couple weeks off solid, would it work better for you to actually stretch that out and work part-time instead? And I was like, yes, that would be a great fit for both my family and my team because I was able to stay connected and still get some work done, even though I was working part-time. My family would have had a really tough time without this option. Perhaps you want to ask your manager if you can shift your schedule around and work different hours than you typically do. Perhaps you want to ask your manager if you can take time off as part of FMLA because working with kids just isn't working. Perhaps you want to ask your roommates if they can stop playing loud music at 10 p.m. on weekdays so you can maintain a regular sleep schedule. It might seem scary or feel uncomfortable, but the people in your life probably don't know what you need or what you want. So ask for what you want. All right, last time to recap this list. Number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. Number 9, do something else. Number 8, eat intentionally. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Number 6, be productive. Number 5, embrace the kids. Number 4, care for yourself. Number 3, take a lunch break. Number 2, ask for what you want. My final tip for you today, be a great PR agent for yourself. I'm shamelessly borrowing this tip from a keynote that Nora Denzel gave several years ago. She encouraged us all to be great PR agents for ourselves. Your colleagues and your managers probably don't know all the amazing things you do, so tell them. If you solve a really hard problem, tell them about it. And don't just say, I solved X and it was no big deal. Explain why it was hard or time consuming. When you're remote, people don't see what you're working on, so you have to advertise your work. If you have a daily scrum or a weekly status meeting, show up ready to tell your team what you've been working on. Be conscious of how you're describing yourself. Control your press release. When I gave my remote work talk last year, this was one of my tips. That very same day, someone asked me how another talk I had given went. I said, well, I got really nervous, so I started talking really fast, and then I started coughing, and I lost my train of thought. And he was like, Lauren, I heard it went great. And I thought, here I am wrecking the press release that someone already gave about me, and I'm just saying how awful of a job I did. So if you didn't do a great job, you don't necessarily have to advertise it. Talk about the good parts. If you do a great job, let people know about it. There are different ways you can do this, and it really depends on your team's culture. If someone gives me a compliment on Twitter or email, I forward it to my management team. It's an easy way to brag without it seeming like I'm bragging. If someone gives you a compliment verbally, you can always ask them to email it to you or your manager. You can also create a culture of compliments on your team. If you compliment your teammates and make it normal to do so, they're likely to compliment your strengths as well. And that's a win for everyone. Be a great PR agent for yourself. Okay, so one last time, I want to recap all of my tips for you. So number 10, acknowledge this isn't normal. If you're struggling to work remotely right now, know that there are a lot of other factors at play. Remote work may not be the problem. Number 9, do something else. If you're going to struggle to pay attention during a meeting or a conference session, do a mindless task at the same time. Number 8, eat intentionally. Portion control your snacks. Schedule lunch if you need to. Number 7, actively prevent burnout. Do what you can to work a consistent schedule. When you're done working, turn off your computer and those phone notifications. Number 6, be productive. Set daily goals. Use the Pomodoro technique to stay focused. Number 5, embrace the kids. They're around right now. Let parents know that it's okay. Number 4, care for yourself. Every day, try to exercise in some form, eat something healthy, and do something fun. Number 3, take a lunch break. In the middle of your day, step away from your computer for 30 minutes to clear your head. Number 2, ask for what you want. People probably don't know what you want or need unless you ask. So ask. And finally, number 1, be a great PR agent for yourself. Advertise your work and be conscious of the words that you are using when you do so. I would love to connect with you on social. You can find me on both Twitter and TikTok with the username Lauren_Schaefer. I'm also on LinkedIn as Lauren Hayward Schaefer. And as a reminder, the slides for this presentation are available on my Twitter page. I've compiled a list of resources and related links if you want to deep dive into this topic more. So you can find those at the back of this presentation. So I hope these tips help you to be a happy and productive remote employee. You've got this. Thank you.